We're going to roll through checking and changing the hot water service anode. If you've got a gas electric hot water service and it's not stainless steel, it's most likely to have an anode in it. The anodes are a tube of magnesium and screws into the hot water service. And what happens is the magnesium's on the outside there, and you'll see that there's a steel core through the middle which holds it all together. And what will happen is that the water, the corrosive nature of the water will attack this anode before it attacks the tank. And as long as you've got some of this anode left, this is where all the corrosion will take place, and it won't attack your tank. So you take this anode out when it's knackered and put a new one in, and your tank should last a very long time, pretty much forever. It's the same sort of deal with your hot water service at home. Your hot water service at home has an anode as well, and if you, it's the same deal with that. If you swap those out, if you can find them in there, take them out. They're a spare part, and it'll serve you pretty well. So the one in the packet here is a Suburban branded anode, and the other one is a K-Mech anode. And you'll see that the K-Mech one's actually a little bit thicker than the Suburban one. So I picked them up for $10 each, the K-Mech ones. So that's pretty good value because they'll last longer because it's thicker. They're worth about, the anodes themselves are worth about $30 or thereabouts. You will get them a little bit cheaper, but if someone wants to try and charge you any more than $30, walk away, because you can pretty much pick them up anywhere for under $30. So what you'll need is a 1/1/16 socket to get the anode out of the hot water service, and a ratchet, either a ratchet drive or a breaker bar like I've got. Now, before we start, the hot water service is pressurised from the mains pressure or the tank, the water pump, and when it gets hot it obviously builds up more pressure. So it is a pressure vessel, and you need to crack that pressure before you take that anode out. I made the fatal mistake a couple of years ago. The van was in storage, and normally when we put the van away and we're not using it, I'll crack the taps and just take the pressure off the system. We don't empty any water out of it or anything, just take a little bit of pressure off. But obviously something that at some point the water pump had been turned on and pressurised that tank. And when I undid the anode, it shot out of that tank like a missile, and it hit the brick wall in the factory here about 20 feet away. So we're looking at, that anode's probably going to be about 3 feet off the ground here, and it hit that wall 20 feet away. So had it have hit me, it would have, depending on where it hit me, I might have been talking a little bit more of a higher voice than I am now. So what we'll do is we'll crack that pressure. We've got 2 taps on the front here, hot and cold. So we'll take that. So we take that tap, obviously not connected to the water or the pump being on. Double check that. Turn the hot and the cold on. Open them up. And we've got a hot water one on the front as well. But go inside the van. If you don't have access to hot water outside, make sure that you leave it open. Crack it and leave it open. And once that's done, make sure your gas is turned off, because you're going to be emptying the tank, and make sure that the electricity 240 volt heater is off, the gas heater's off, and there's no pressure in the tank anymore, and there's no hose attached to the van, so there's no pressure in that tank at all now, so it's safe to undo. There's the anode here. You'll see the end of that nut there, 1 1/16 socket. You'll need an extension to get it in there, otherwise it won't. You won't reach it. And you're looking for the end of that nut there, and that's what's in there. So I do mine fairly regularly, so there's not a lot of pressure. I don't need too much pressure to undo it. But if you haven't changed yours out for 12 months or so, it builds up a bit of pressure in there, a little bit of corrosion around the inlet and the anode itself, and it might take a little bit of elbow grease to loosen it. When the anode, we'll take this anode out, it's still got a bit of meat on it because I've already checked it not so long ago. And we'll plug this one back in, stop that water from coming out for the time being. Leave that in there. So here's your anode. That's what it looks like after it started off like this, and it will start to chew that thing away. And what it does is it breaks down and turns into this white chalky, sort of gravelly chalky substance, and that'll all float or sink to the bottom of the tank, and it'll be all sitting in the bottom of that tank. So the less that's left on here, the more crap that's going to be sitting in the bottom of the tank. That stuff's not corrosive, but you don't want it to be sitting in there. So once you've taken, there's a fair bit of meat onto that, so I'm going to put that back in there. I won't let it go all the way down to the stick, and I won't let it chew all the way back. We've got a $70,000 Caravan. This is a $30 stick. I don't see the value in screwing an extra $5 out of this. A little bit more than that, and I'd be chucking it out and putting a new one in. But because we're not going to be using the van for a couple of months, I'll stick that back in for the time being. And all this chalky crap will come out with the water, drain the tank, let all the water out of the tank, and then using like a small hose, like this type of deal, just make it up with something you can get in there. You need a little bit smaller than the hole so it can build up, doesn't build up too much pressure, and you can wash it out. Shove it onto the hose, shove the pipe into the empty when the anode's out, and just squirt it around and wash all that chalky crap out of there before you put the new anode in, and that'll clean it out. So we're going to put this anode back in. It's a good idea to put a bit of tape around the end of it, a bit of plumber's tape, just so to make sure that it seals, because it does build up a bit of pressure. So that'll stop. You'll see the chalky substance coming out as soon as you crack that, pull that dirty anode out. That white chalky stuff will start coming out. So that's fine. So that's been checked, and it can go back in for the short term. And I'll crank it up. You don't need to put a hell of a lot of pressure on it. As long as you've got a bit of plumber's tape on there, it'll be fine. And then once that's done, that's now done up. The anode's been either checked, put back in, or replaced, either, it makes no difference. And then what we can do now is turn those taps off. Sorry, lock those taps back up. Turn them off where the water's been coming out. Put our hose back onto the van, and it will restart refilling up that hot water service. And if you crack a hot water tap, you'll let the air out, whatever air's been built, or the empty air the empty tank's full of air now. So you want that when the water's going in to that tank, cracking a hot water tap. Shout Maxie. Cracking a hot water tap will allow it to fill up easier, faster, and less bubbles and less air pockets. And once you're getting water straight out of that hot water tap, your water tank will be full. Turn the power back on, crank your gas back up if that's what you're using. Pressurise it. Make sure that it's not leaking around the thread there, and you're good to go. One quick tip: when I first bought my van, this section are two separate pieces. This is the heater, and this is the outside frame which holds the door and attaches to the van. And what I did, they should be sealed, because when you take that anode out, the water's going to come pissing out of there, and it's about 20 odd litres that's going to come thumping out. So get some silicone and just wipe it into that joint along the bottom, and you can see I've used black silicone around there. You don't have to go all the way up, you only have to go up to the bottom of these screw fixing points, just so when you undo that, the water comes rushing out of here. It's not going to go underneath there and inside your van. It shouldn't do that anyway. It should be sealed anyway, but I don't know where it is, because I don't know whether it's sealed or not, because I can't see it without taking this cover off, and I'm not going to take any chances. Seal it up here, run it along that edge, fill up that edge in there. It's not going to do anything except stop the water from going in and damaging your van. And that's pretty much it. You've done the anode, and you should get probably around about, depending on where you're going, you should get around about, well, we do, get around about 12 months out of an anode. So we'll check it every 6 months or so, 4 months to 6 months. And then once it gets down to a point where not much more, if I'm going to go to the trouble of taking it out and having a look at it, and it's got a little bit less meat left on it than what it had, I'm not going to take any chances and waste my time jerking around and have to check it again in another 2 months. Bugger it, just put another one in. You're only going to save yourself about $5, and the risk, the potential of forgetting to check it, and then it's starting to corrode the tank, and then you're up for $1,000 for a new hot water service. So there you go. It's pretty simple. Anyone can do it. You don't need a torque wrench or anything like that to put it back on. You'll know whether it's tight enough, because if it's not, it'll be leaking. And if it's leaking, just give it a nip up with your socket until it's not leaking anymore, and you're done.